Bob, welcome to the podcast. I'm not even going to say the name, so I'm just going to say
Uh,
welcome to the podcast.
you know, don't worry about it, Michelle.
I am super excited to have you on here. I have to say a special shout out to Crystal from Crystal Media for helping us connect us even more. I reached out a couple times, and I'm very grateful that she helped connect the dots. And here you are.
Yeah, and Michelle, I am happy to be here. I am excited to talk to you. Crystal shared that you were the best interviewer she ever worked with. So I
Wow.
hope I hope I can keep up.
Well, like I said before we got on camera, is I've been watching your Instagram and what you guys do as a brand for a while. And I feel like there is a whole lot of retailers that don't know what you do. So I really wanted to have you on to talk about it because my goal with this podcast has always been it's not about me. It's really about promoting other people's businesses and really giving retailers the tools that I wish I had when I was a retailer, which weren't available. And now with this world of information and people out there that help each other, like I figured this is like a perfect opportunity to, another educational service for all the retailers that listen to us.
That's great. Yeah, I'm happy to anything. I mean, let's just have a conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Or did I understand that to be a question you asking me what we do?
Well, we're going to start it off just like a regular conversation. I'm going to have you
Okay,
introduce yourself and give a little
sure.
background on your background and what led you to creating Whiz Bang Retailer Training.
Sure. So in 1981, I was 23 years old. Yes, that does date me. And I had just graduated from college and I had a new hobby, and that hobby was kite flying. And I loved everything about kite flying. And I didn't want to get a real job, right? I mean, I knew that I wasn't ready for the world, and the world wasn't ready for 23-year-old Bob Nagan. So I love flying kites and I didn't want to get a real job. So I thought I'd open a kite store because how hard can it be to run a retail store? So
Famous last words.
exactly. So I went up to Mackinac City, Michigan. And if you know Michigan, there's Michigan, and Mackinac City is at the tip of the mitt, as we call it. And I started one of the world's first kite stores. And that first year, that first season, it was a seasonal store. We did a pitiful $17,000. And that first year, I hired my brother Steve, and he worked with us. And we did what a lot of retailers still don't need to do, but we needed to do, is before the internet. If hard to believe that there was a time before the internet.
Right.
And so we just kept moving forward. There were no books on retail, there were no podcasts. It was just about making mistakes and figuring it out. And that's what we did. We just kept working at it. We grew, we expanded. And then in about year 12 of our retail adventure, I met my wife, who is now my partner at Whiz Bang Retail Training, Susan. And she was a department store executive. She worked for Macy's and Lord and Taylor and Bloomingdale's. It sounds like a lot like your background. She was a trained retailer. And she left retail to become a teacher because she didn't ever want to be in retail again. And then she met me, and so that kind of threw that plan off the track. She was a retailer, a teacher for a year. But the thing that's relevant to our conversation, Michelle, is that what my brother Steve and I had, and what the Mackinac Kite Company had, was what so many independent retailers have. We were passionate. We worked hard. We tried hard. We were incredibly customer focused, but we didn't have skills. We had some skills, the skills that we learned sort of by trial and error, but there was this whole set of skills that, frankly, it was unconscious incompetence. I didn't know what open to buy plan was.
Oh,
I didn't know what
notice.
assortment planning was. I didn't know what any of those things were. We went to the show, we bought what we liked, we tried to sell it. If we didn't sell it, we didn't know what we were doing. In fact, I remember looking at her one day and going, somebody actually taught her how to do this. It was like, oh my gosh, And so when she came to work for us, we had a really good business that we were really proud of. But it didn't quite work the way it was supposed to. We never had cash because we didn't know how to manage our inventory. We never quite managed our team right because we didn't have that management structure that is needed. Our marketing was all about enthusiasm and flying kites. So when Susan came to work for us, really what happened was we were able to layer those skills, those professional retail skills, on our entrepreneurial all of that entrepreneurial energy. And then it just started to click. I mean, good things started to happen right away. And then what I realized was that most retailers don't have what it takes. They don't have those skills. And so in 99, my brother Steve came to me and he said, "Hey, you want to sell your share of the company?" And by then it was time, right? I mean, we had worked together. He wanted a chance to run it. I wanted to go on and do what we're doing right now. So I sold my share of the Mackinac Kite Company to my brother Steve, who now runs it successfully all these years later. And Susan and I started Whiz Bang Retail Training. And our mission is to help. I mean, we work almost exclusively with small to mid-size independent brick and mortar retailers. And our mission is to help give them the skills they need to be successful and the skills they need to have a good life, the skills they need to be profitable, the skills they need to have the impact that they're capable of having, with their team members, with their customers, in their community. And so that's how we started. And so we've been doing that since 1999. And, we have products and programs and events. And, we just do all of the things that experts do to get their word out, into the world.
I have to ask you because I have this challenge with a lot of retailers because my main hustle is the retail consulting for visual merchandising.
Sure.
And the change is something that people do not grasp onto very well. It's like there is a lot of pushback. So I have to ask, when Susan came on board with all of these, tools and things that she's learned from the big boys, and she's now implementing them into the system, what did that look like for your team?
There
And
was
even
quite
yourself.
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of pushback. I mean, well, at the time we had 4 stores, and and there was quite a bit of pushback because the status quo loves the status quo.
Yeah.
But for me, as the majority stockholder and as the president of the company, I knew that something needed to happen. I was smart enough, not that the people who were pushing back weren't, but I knew that what we were doing was not sustainable. There was so much stress. We almost went broke once. We almost went broke another time. But so I knew that what we had was not enough. And so what needed to happen was, at the end of the day, I had to make the decision and uphold the decision that I made, and just kind of say, look, this is what we're doing. And to your point, Michelle, this is something I see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, one of our flagship products is called the Retail Sales Academy. And, it's an online sales training platform, customer focused, retail specific sales training. And people invest in it. And then they say, but my people won't do it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Do tell
my
on how, because what this looks like, because literally I know every single retailer has this issue. And I know when I've come across it, that's the first thing I tell new clients, like, look, change does not come easy. It's uncomfortable. It's part of the unknown. And it's, we've always done it this way is usually the response. And, my response usually is, for my clients, like, you're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because if everything was going the way it was supposed to, I would not be here. So, tell me how you train your retailers on how to jump over this hurdle. It's as a big
Sure.
hurdle.
Well, so the way that I describe retail success is there's 3 parts to it. There's mindset, skill set, and there's structure. And it always starts with mindset. It always starts with your beliefs And and then once you get that part right, then the skills start to really, then all things change. And so when I talk to the retailers, there's always this conversation about mindset. And so the when somebody says my people won't do it, there is a belief that they don't have the power,
Mm,
right? There's the belief that somehow when team members hold a retailer or any business owner, when people are being held hostage, and that's what the right way to describe it, there has to be a moment where a business owner has to put on their big boy pants or their big
mm.
girl pants and make the change. So I made a real retail TV episode about this, and it's called "What is Your Retail Superpower?" And your retail superpower is your ability to make a choice, right? So let's go back one step farther. So there's this idea of every problem points to the need to develop a skill, right?
Mhm.
So when people aren't when their team isn't doing what they want them to do, what it means is that the problem is their team is running them. They're not running their team. They're not being
Amen.
leaders, they're being led. So they
Yes.
have to make a choice to develop the skill. The skill in this case is management and leadership. And so there's always the problem points to the opportunity. And in between the problem and the opportunity is the skill, but you have to make the choice. And, as as we're talking about right here, so many people, they get into business because they have a passion for their product.
Hmm.
And then the next thing you know, they're at this place where their skills don't match their passion and they're stuck. And so this is the moment of truth.
Yeah.
This is where they have to say, look, this is what happened with me. I got to the point where I had to say, look, either things are going to change or it's never going to change. Marshall Goldsmith, the executive coach, has got this great quote: "What got you here won't get you there." And
Amen.
so it really is. So the mindset is I'm going to make a choice. I'm going to become the kind of person who goes out and develops the skills. And to your point, does the thing they need to do, whether it's fun or easy or comfortable. But then whenever you do that, then you develop the skills, you develop the confidence, and then it starts to happen.
I have to ask you, because I know every retailer listening to this right now is saying, well, how many people am I going to lose and what do I do? And my answer is always, because you're going to have pushback and you're going to have people that are like, I'm just like, because I mean, I had it in my stores when I had
Of
my own
course.
stores. And, what I learned is once those pieces of the puzzles are taken out, suddenly the rest of the team has a chance, because everyone talks and it's like all these new change. I mean, I just came back from a store in Wyoming that I am working on, and I knew going into it this team was not happy. These guys had purchased a brand that this family had owned for 20 something years, and they're still keeping the family involved, and the daughter came in and it was just, you could feel the tension.
Ah,
And I
I
I
can
just
feel it from here, Michelle.
I had a smile and just be like, this is just what it is. It's them uncomfortable. And it was funny. Now I'm watching them do the build out and everything that I had suggested. And one of the responses, like, so and so is very surprised that the team really likes the changes that are happening. And it's once that one person's either left or has been won over, suddenly the rest of the team seems like they come on board, and everybody, and I know that people will lose team members because of these changes, but I always, and I don't know if you agree, it's like it's almost a blessing, because that means everybody's on the same page. Everyone's equally as excited. Everyone is all moving together as one team.
100. I could not agree with you more. There's that old saying that there's so much truth. One bad apple does spoil the whole bunch. So again, let's go back to this idea of choice and the fact that you control your destiny. So you decide, so I'm you, not you, but so you're a retailer, you're a store owner, and you decide that you're tired of letting the inmates run the asylum, that you're tired of things not going the way that you want them to go. You make a choice to grow a better business, excuse me, to build a better life. And then when you make that choice and you're ready to live with the consequences of that choice, then you do the things that you need to do. You do the training, you do the planning, you do, I mean, so I'm a big believer in creating training programs and making sure that everybody is properly trained. So when they're out on the floor, they have the skills they need to be successful.
Yep.
And then, people, there will always be people who will fight against it. And Michelle, those people just have to go. So if anybody is listening to this or watching this, what I want to encourage is I want to encourage the idea of, you have to do what you have to do to build the kind of business you want to get the kind of life you deserve. Because the minute that you let fear or the need to be liked get in the way,
Ah,
so I mean, that was my style. So that was my leadership style. I called it the cool dude style, right?
yep.
When I was a young guy, I liked flying kites. I liked to party. And so all the people who worked for us were young people who liked to party and fly kites. But what I realized one day is I didn't need them to like me. I needed them to respect me enough to help me build my business.
Yep.
Otherwise, I was going to go broke. And so, I mean, it really, and now is kind of an inflection point in the history of retail, in my opinion. People are at this place where expectations are up, loyalty is down.
Mm-hmm.
And if your customers don't get a great in-store experience or a great experience online, but particularly an in-store experience, they're never going to come back. They can get it someplace else
Yep.
without the hassle and the annoyance of dealing with a poor experience in your store. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say because you, well, you have several programs that you have, and that you do, and I was looking at one of your Instagrams, or it was your retail TV because you just touched on hiring, and I think right now,
Mhm.
coming out of the pandemic, and with obviously the unemployment part stopped, but somehow there's still a lot of people that decided like they don't want to go back to work, and I hear this all the time of like, how do okay, for instance, this is where this conversation started. I was going to one of my accounts in a mall and I happened to walk through Macy's, and it was literally the doors had just opened. And it was like going past table after table and four-way and rails, like every single one was like a Costco table, just mounds of clothes. And as I'm walking through, I rarely call retailers out, but this was one of those things where it was like, we've had a couple people on that all talk about the value, treating your product with value, because if you treat it like value, your customers will value it. And it's like, so all I could think about was this person's phrase. And I'm like, how do you expect to charge somebody 100 something for jeans and they have to dig through them on a pile and then try and, because there's no one on the floor anymore. Everyone's only at these ringing stations, that their new way they've formatted stuff. But I couldn't understand how this happens in retail now. But then everyone's response in 100 DMs was, it's impossible to keep people. There's no one that's being hired. We can't find good help. And so
Oh, can I go on a rant? Please, can I
yes,
go on a rant? Can
yes,
I
please
call
do.
bullshit? I mean, if you need to beep
Oh,
that out, beep it out. But I call
no.
bullshit. I mean, I 100%. And I'm so tired of it, and people. So, and so I know I'm being contrary, and I apologize if I sound like I'm wagging a finger, but
No, do it.
I'm
Because
getting really, really tired of this
yes.
because retailers are using. We just had a long thread about this in our Whiz Bang Retailers Facebook group. Oh, Bob, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand. In response to people are keeping shorter hours, right? People are closing 2 or 3 days a week. I have two retailers here that I went to their stores after 5 o'clock because I worked till 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock and they were closed at 5. So, one of them was a florist. Okay. I wanted to buy some tulips. They're closed at 5. So I went to the grocery store. They sell nice tulips, cheaper. Right? Okay. I won't get into it. So, but anyway, don't get me started. Well, I guess you did get me started, Michelle. You got me started. But so, first of all, let's take a look at the premise of this argument that I can't find people. So the first part of that, the logical fallacy of that statement is that the world is still filled with employees. So the mall is filled with stores that have employees. So there are employees, there are people who are working, they're just not working for you. Okay. So that's the first thing. There's no people. So I'm looking out my window at the 4 blocks of downtown Grand Haven, beautiful historic downtown Grand Haven. And in the stores that are in this town, there has to be 300 employees. If you added all the schedules, and there has to be 300 employees. So the excuse that there's no employees is just invalid. It's just not true. They're there. Restaurants use the same thing. It's like, well, wait a second. There's plenty of restaurants. They all have. So what the challenge is again, if there's a problem, you need to find a skill that leads to a solution. So in this case, so first of all, the mindset is incorrect. Nobody wants to work. That is a bad belief. It is a belief that does not serve a retailer. Okay, yes. So that's the mindset. The skill set is recruiting. So I'll share a story with you. I mean, do you mind if I share?
Oh my gosh, that's what this whole podcast is about.
Okay, well, I didn't want to take, sometimes I feel like I talk too much.
If we have to break this into 2 different episodes, I am completely down with that.
Okay, all right. So, and Patty has given me permission to share this, but there's a pet store owner in Virginia, and she's been part of our community for a long time. She's now in our Platinum Mastermind group. And she called me and woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. One of the big pet chains just stole her manager. And, she couldn't match the salary, blah, 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 blah. Chicken Little, the sky is falling. So I was like, okay, Patty, let's do this. I'll give you some coaching, but you have to agree to let me record it so I can share it with people. She's like, oh yeah, I just need to solve this problem. So we did so I did a coaching session. And so we talked about both mindset and skill set. And we talked about all of her beliefs around nobody wants to work, that this is a terrible situation, that the big guys have the competitive advantage. She just had all sorts of bad beliefs around it. And not to be woo-woo, but when you have, your beliefs manifest themselves.
Energy creates energy, and what you put out into the universe literally comes back at you.
Exactly. And the energy she was putting out was bad. So we talked about that. And then we talked about the skill set. So, our flagship product is called the Retail Mastery System. And in the Retail Mastery System, there are 11 modules. One of them is a
very large package. I saw that.
Oh, yeah. There's 25 hours of video training and books and, yada, yada, yada. I mean, if you want to be a successful independent retailer, all of the skills that I learned making mistakes and from Susan are there. But one of those skills is recruiting. So I said, so what do you do for recruiting? Well, I put an ad on Indeed. And so let me see your ad. Well, it was lame. It was terrible. So think about,
what does a lame ad look like? Just kind of like
So a lame is retail associate wanted. Must work weekends and late hours, some holidays, Saturdays.
Wow.
By the way, I would like some experience, just leading with the negative. Leading with the negative. So here's what, and if your listeners want to solve this problem, recognize that recruiting is really, it's about marketing your position to the people who should be your team members, right? So we created a format called a red hot help wanted ad. And it's a marketing piece. It's a marketing piece that says, hey, if you're this kind of person who loves to do this kind of thing, we offer all this great stuff. If you're interested, here's how we get in touch. So Patty changed up her red hot help wanted ad. So now she had a recruiting tool. She had a marketing tool. And then she started distributing it. That's another thing we teach. You can't just have an ad and put it on Indeed or Craigslist or Facebook and hope to get good people.
Talent, yeah.
What you have to do, it's like fishing. You have to have the good bait and you have to get it out all over the place. So then we talked about, where do you put your red hot help wanted ad? How do you use it? How do you get it out there? Well, sure enough, the next thing you know, she's got great people. And now she's got a full staff. And she recently posted that she got, just last week, I did an interview with an AI expert, one of our WizBank certified retail coaches. And she got real excited about it. She was a professional copywriter in a previous life. But she used, Chat GPT to help her wordsmith her red hot help wanted ad. She sent it out in an email. And because it was such a great, a great specific marketing piece, if you're this person, you're going to love working here. And so all of a sudden she posts back, the perfect employee found us. One of her customers who was on her email list saw this ad, sent it to a friend who went, oh my gosh, this is the perfect job for me. And the other thing that Patty said was, and she also was trained on the retail mastery system. So she really literally did attract the perfect person. So, that's where I get pushback. So I just get really tired of people saying, I can't, I won't, because of circumstances outside of their control.
Yeah.
You control everything in your business.
Well, I
You
think
have
it's
to figure it out and have the skills. Yeah.
Having those tools. I mean, I think that's what your program, that's brilliant. I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up in that. It's just a constant loop of negativity. I'll never find anybody. I think it's hard if you've gone through the pandemic. I think everyone's gone through a lot, with the supply chain. Like, I think that, you're already Debbie Downer about so much stuff, and for rightfully so. It's been a rough time, but I think it's
100%.
hard for retailers to step out of that and start changing the way they think. And that's one of those things I'm number one woo-woo weirdo. Like I'm that person. But I also believe, Fred Siegel was my mentor, and that was always energy creates energy, and what you put out. And that was just for, his reference on opening your boxes in the middle of the store, like create that energy, like don't where it's like no music and nothing. And it's like, but create that energy and where you are going to draw people into you. And I think that's hard though, sometimes for retailers to get out of that mindset, because it has been a rough time. But I think once you do, and your tools, I think, help that.
So, and you are so spot on. And, and I have been accused of not being sensitive to the fact that people are tired. And I am absolutely sensitive. Michelle, in my retail business, in those 19 years, I almost went broke twice. So I know what it's like to, I mean, everybody I know has almost gone broke. It's almost like a badge of courage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't happen twice, but that's a different story. But, but I am incredibly sympathetic. But here are the mindset shifts that I think are so important. Is the first mindset, and you have to make a choice. Let's go back to this idea that there has to be a choice made, that you have to, the first shift is from fear to courage. Everybody, it's natural that the pandemic, fear became the default emotion. Very, to your point. Naturally, the world was imploding. Everything, but there comes a time when you have to make that decision. And you have to be aware of what you're feeling. And when you start to feel fear, you need to ask yourself, is this legitimate, or am I going to do the right thing and step forward? You see, because every time that you make that decision to be brave, it leads to confidence, and it's an upward positive spiral. So, and you become more confident, it becomes good. You're willing to take another chance. And that's how you move from it. That's how you move from making excuses for not having a great team, making excuses for not keeping customer focused hours, making excuses for not training your team so that they give your customers the service they deserve. The second shift, and I think that this is an important one, just as important, and it ties into the first shift, is from cost to investment. So, and it's not just cash, although that's part of it, but you made that point of the negative loop. So what people aren't doing is they're not investing in finding a solution.
Yeah.
They're caught in that trap. So, I mean, and not to pitch the retail mastery system, but if you have problems, I just had a coaching call today. Somebody posted on Whiz Bang Retailers, I have this business I love. I have some real personal issues. I'm burned out. I don't know what to do. So I
It's hard.
made her a half-hour video right there on the page, just going, look, you got this, but you have to change the way that you're looking at it. You have to invest in yourself. And she invested in the retail mastery system, and she just posted today. She was like, oh my gosh, I see what I need to do, right? And so this is not about investing money in our products and programs, but it is about having the courage to make an investment, whether it's with somebody else's programs, whether it's just investments of time. If you want to become a better leader, you can go on Google and Google leadership and spend the next 5 years watching videos, right? Watching YouTube videos. But there needs to be a very, very proactive attitude towards solving problems. And here's the thing is that one of the things that I learned when I was going broke is the only way to respond to stress is with action. And that investment is often the action. So inaction will keep you stuck.
Yep.
Action will move you forward. To your point, the energy you put out is the energy you get back in. And so, and because she was struggling, I offered to give her a free coaching session, and we went through where she should spend her time right now. And now she's feeling good, right? Now she's like, okay, I know what to do. And, and I'm quite sure that she's going to be a success.
So I want to get into your programs in a second, but I have a couple things because as you're talking, I'm like, all these questions are swirling.
Okay.
The number one thing I hear, and it makes me insane, is the comparison of Amazon's going to take over Amazon. And my whole thing is, because my background from Fred's is all about customer service, spoon feeding customers. Like everyone who bought something from my old store, everyone got a handwritten thank you note mailed to them, whether it was socks or $1,500.
Yeah.
Even now, I still think pen and paper, hands down, are better than a text or an email. But Amazon, and this is my answer, I'm going to get on my soapbox, is Amazon is not going to remember
Michelle,
your
because I'm with you.
He's not going to remember your child's birthday. Amazon is not going to ask you how your holiday was. Amazon is not going to follow up and say, hey, I know you love this. We just got more in. I'm going to pull. Amazon is never going to replace brick and mortar if your customer service is where it's supposed to be. And if with the customer experience in your store, whether it's experiential or the customer service element or the product, like Amazon is never going to replace that. Yes, I will always buy my crap like pens, paper, whatever I don't need to go into. But am I going to buy a candle on Amazon? No. Am I going to buy, a pair of denim? Like, no, like And that's what, like, please tell people Amazon, because I'm so over, that, and I'm over, like, I don't want to sell it because people are checking Amazon as they're standing in the store. Yes, you're going to have that. But by far and large, people are instant gratification and they want it right then and there. And they don't want to wait for it 2 days later from Amazon. And rant.
Okay, so okay, may I respond to that?
Yes.
Hallelujah, you're speaking my language. So complaining about Amazon is like going for a walk and complaining that you get wet. They are merely part of the competitive landscape. And the people who are saying that are, again, just being victims. It's somebody else's fault that their business isn't what they want it to be. So let's talk about a couple of things. First of all, to your point, there's a couple of things that, so actually I'm writing a book right now. It's called Mighty on Main Street. And it's about the impact that independent retailers have in the world and how they go about, how they become the store of choice. So actually, Amazon is losing ground. They're growing, but what people are finding, there's two things happening. One is this thing that I call local loyalty. So the pandemic has taught people the value of their downtowns.
Yes.
And the government gave some money to help stores stay alive. But one of the things, so I've never been a fan of the shop local movement. And it's not that I don't appreciate the sentiment. It's not that I don't shop local. I just don't think that guilting somebody into spending their money locally is a good way to get them to shop locally. I have always contended that the best way to get people to shop local is for their local merchants to be the best option
Ding,
for
ding,
their
ding.
customers. So that's the first thing. So right now, there is a groundswell of energy for helping independent retailers become successful. However, the independents have got to respond by being better.
Yes.
So let's go back to your, people complaining, right? This has always been the case, but it's even more acute right now. There are three types of retailers, in my opinion. There's the whiners, the hopers, and the doers. And the whiners are the people who are victims. They're victims of nobody wants to work. They're victims of Amazon's killing me. There are victims of the supply chain. It's their lack of success is everybody's fault but their own. And really, let's go back to this idea that everybody has a choice. You have a choice. You can be a victor or a victim, or you can be a victor. So, and those people are going out of business faster than ever because they have more choices than ever. Direct consumer brands are, skyrocketing. The last decade has really, sort of signaled a big growth in direct to consumer brands. Amazon's always going to be there. And then there's the hopers, and hope is a wonderful emotion. I'm a hopeful guy. But really, the future belongs to the people who are saying to themselves, saying to their team, saying to their community, we're here to stay. We are here for you. We are good. We will be there for you. And what that means, Michelle, is that they have to be good, that they can't make excuses. Yeah. They have to be fundamentally strong. They have to be customer focused. They have to be community focused. And, and so just to sort of play to your comment about people looking for a price on Amazon while they're in your store. Well, I've always thought that's the lamest excuse I've ever heard, because they're in your store. If you can't convert them when you're in your store, you don't deserve the sale, right?
It's ironic, isn't it?
It's like, come on. So, but there's this whole idea of, and I'm excited. I hope I don't come off as being too negative, because I'm so optimistic about the future of independent retail. But I'm also, to our conversation here, so frustrated to see people making excuses for not getting the success that they deserve. Let me say this to you right here, and to all of your listeners, that right now, for the first time in history, Everything you need to build, everything you want is available to you right now. The education you need. I mean, I'm going to go back to the retail mastery system. That's our product, but there's other retail experts out there. If you need help with your visual merchandising, there's you. But there, everything you need. There's the skills. Management One is one of our partners, for using open to buy planning to manage your inventory in a much, much more sophisticated way than it was ever possible. Shopify has made it easier for you to have an e-commerce presence than ever before. Email marketing. Shoot, it used to be that the only people who could go live was, Home Shopping Network and QVC. I can go live right now. Maybe I'll do that. Hey, I'm on this way. I'm on the Retail Whore podcast.
It's hilarious to hear you saying that.
But isn't it true?
Yeah.
Everything. And so, but what has to happen? It goes back to fear to courage, cost to investment, making the choice that, look, the tailwinds are behind me, and I'm going to take advantage of it, because right now is the time for independent retailers. It is the time.
So you brought up something else now, and it's like, I have to wonder, because I've said this on the podcast a lot, is that I feel like universally what the pandemic did was quickly usher out people who were stuck in, we've always done it this way. We don't need an e-commerce site. I don't need to go, or I'm not comfortable going live. I don't want, and it literally, it's like watching retail fast forward how fast some of these stores were ushered out. And now what I'm loving, as I'm 57 and watching, I've been in retail for 40 plus years, and watching now how the new generation of retailers, meaning 20-year-olds, watching them at the magic floor. And I use this example a lot, and I know everyone's heard this already, so I apologize, but I
haven't, or maybe I have, but anyway.
I mean, watching these girls walk around with light sticks, going live from Magic in booths, standing there, and they've got their girlfriend. They already decided what they're buying. They've already decided the retail cost. This is blah, blah, blah. It fits like this. They're taking orders live and turning around going, I'll take 10 packs. Like, I can't wait till Gift catches up with that, because Gift fashion seems much more forward in so many ways, but watching that as the new generation of retailers, and it's so exciting. And so I have to ask you, within your bundle and post-pandemic, have you had to change some of how you teach social media about going live and about how some of these things are changing? Have you had to curtail some of your education for that?
So let's go back and let's talk about an essential truth, because I think people get caught up in the tools and at the expense of strategy. So social media. So do you know who Sally Hogshead is?
Mm-mm.
She wrote a book called The Fascinate Advantage, and she was a keynote speaker on a Retail Success Summit. She's a thought leader, right? And she said something at the summit that just went, she said, social media is not a strategy. Going live isn't a strategy. All of these are tools. So so what we talk about in the Retail Mastery System, we have a whole module on digital marketing, and we teach content and email marketing, going live in those tools. But we really emphasize this idea that it's about the strategy. So when we work with independent retailers, it really becomes about what can make you stand out. There's a book called The Blue Ocean Shift. That's the second book. But there's a red ocean. If you look at, imagine two circles, and a red ocean is the ocean of commodity. And for your people who are complaining about Amazon, they're living in a red ocean because they think if they don't match prices, they're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah.
But the strategy is to be in a blue ocean, is to be a category of one. And you know how you become a category of one is you become you. You just put your best self out there. So the strategies become things like community, authenticity, point of view, education. And this is how retailers become the store of choice. So, so do we talk about all of those things? Yes, but if you're clear on strategy, when the next TikTok comes around, it doesn't change everything you do. It just changes the tool you use to get your customers to like you more, right?
Yep.
To trust you
Beautiful.
more. So all of these things all tie into each other. So, but again, let's go back to fear versus courage. Going live. Oh my God, just scares the shit out of some people, right? But it's okay. I can't tell you how many people I just talked into doing their first live. The answer is you're enough.
Yeah.
That if you put yourself out there. So I'll tell a quick story. In our Platinum Mastermind group meeting, right before the pandemic hit, we were in LA. And a friend of ours from a mastermind that Susan and I were in is a gentleman named David Lawrence the 17th. And he's an acting coach and an actor and a voiceover coach. And we brought him in to teach storytelling and presentation skills. And we were talking about going live. And one of our members has a quilt store, and she raised her hand and she was like, I become mortified. I freeze when I think about going live. And David got all emotional. He said, look, here's the deal. You are enough. Just recognize you are enough. And she went back and the pandemic hit and she had to go live like so many people
Yeah.
did. And what she shared with me after the fact was she had a quilt store and she approached quilting different than most quilt stores. She approached her lives. She was very visceral, right? Quilting was an intellectual design issue as much as a creative issue.
Yeah.
So she was just herself. She expressed how she looked at quilting. She taught that way. And therefore, she attracted people who were like her.
Yeah.
And she built this brand, this nationwide brand, by being herself. So the strategy of authenticity, the strategy of building a community built around your authenticity, the strategy of trust, all of these things don't change when the technologies change.
Well, Crystal put it well, is that, I think anyone that's sort of gun shy of going live, I mean, this podcast started from going live during the pandemic to talk to retailers just about like, what are they doing? What are your frustrations? How are you spending the time? And it was, when the pandemic, I went back to work before the pandemic had actually, right pretty much when they said some things were opening, I was right back at work. And
Right.
I kind of forgot about it. And then I went back and I was like, okay, we're going to do this. Asked me if I've gone live since then. I have not gone live since. I take it back. I've gone live once. And it's like, how have I not? But Crystal has such a good point, is that people are shopping your store because they not only love what you're selling, but they like you. And if they don't know who you are and you don't get comfortable getting on, just even like, hey, how are you? I mean, I don't know. And I talk about them all the time. It's called Catwalk on Fairfax. And it's 3 older women who have a fantastic vintage store that sells Chloe and Gucci and like some of the most amazing, authentic, beautiful vintage pieces. It is such a shit show. I love them because they're like live and they're like, what is that? And they're looking in the camera. I mean, it's hilarious.
People love that.
But that's what makes them so amazing. And I said to Elisa, who does our digital marketing, she keeps going, you need to get them on. And I'm going to reach out to them because honestly, like they literally are just doing it. And that's what, and much to Crystal's point, is like, that is what people love about you. It's like,
one of our clients, and how and she was in the in the Platinum Mastermind group until we lost all of our Canadian members when the pandemic came. And that's okay. They're coming back. But She and I heard about her and what she did, and this is before very many people went live. And I was like, I've got to get this woman in the Platinum Mastermind group. And her name's Laura, and it's a sweet boutique in Edmonton. And every Friday, she would pop a bottle of Prosecco at 5 o'clock and walk around the store and talk to people. And this is
Love it.
before anybody had seen anything like that. It was when everybody was saying, oh, it's got to be scripted, the lights got to be right. And she just, and by the time she was done and answering questions and doing all those things, she was a little tipsy, but it was
I love
her
it.
being her.
Authentic.
Right. And then when Tiger King was big, she had a whole Tiger King thing.
Oh my
And one of
God.
her employees, she's her being her.
Yeah.
And when one of her employees turned 69, she had a big in-store party and they brought in male strippers. I mean, or,
Hilarious.
not all the way, but, I mean, and it's just being her. So
I love it.
some people aren't going to like it, but your people are going to like it.
Yep. You find your tribe.
You find your tribe, and that's why one of the key strategies is authenticity. And and Jeff Bezos is never going to be able to do that. The big brands aren't going to be able to do that. So if you show up as your best self, now good things are going to happen. Now I want to say one thing about all of that, because authenticity and creativity and and all of those things, this idea of soul, I love the idea of a store with soul, that you can feel it when you walk in. And that's a lot of it's a function of visual merchandising and what you do. But all of that is good, but anymore, when we talk about this idea of expectations are up, loyalty is down, you have to be fundamentally strong, right? If you have the most beautiful store in the world, but you're out of bestsellers all the time,
Oh,
you're going to start to lose
yeah.
people, right? One of my favorite stores was out of my size in socks 4 times, and they almost lost me, but they hired management one, and now they're always in stock, right?
How do you
Because
run out of size of
well, yeah,
socks?
and I wear large, but I mean, it's because they didn't. Again, it's because they were missing a skill, and that skill was buying. Right, their buyer was overworked. They had a busy store because it was a nice store. They're good people. They're enthusiastic. So here's what I found building my business. I'm sure you found the exact same thing, and I'm sure all of your listeners find this to be true, because I think it's a universal truth that as you grow, the skills you don't have emerge.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a
Boy.
sudden you've got a problem. And if you don't learn that skill, that problem's not going to go away and you become stuck. This is the beauty of entrepreneurism, right? You got a problem, you have to learn. To the thing we were talking about earlier, you don't know how to manage a team, you've got to build this skill. For me, it was learning how to sell, then learning how to manage people, then learning how to manage my inventory, then learning how to manage my cash, then learning how, I mean, it's so as you grow, what you don't know becomes evident, because what you don't know becomes an impediment in the path to you building your best business. And so all of this good, creative, fun juice that we all love to talk about has to be the underpinning, the foundation has to be, you have to be a skilled merchant first and foremost. Otherwise, all this stuff will eventually become irrelevant because your customers aren't going to get the service they deserve.
I have to ask you one question, because before I ask you and get you to explain how your system works, everyone right now is talking about not everyone, a lot of people after this crazy profitable year everyone had last year.
Right.
Oh, we're down so much. I can't believe it. And, I'm having to find myself saying, do not compare your numbers, your TYLY to last year. Because last year was kind of like, it was amazing, but it was kind of not really real. And now I'm telling people, really, I would really look at, I've had open to buy people saying, don't even look at TYLY. Like, it's really
Right.
look at today, day to day to day. But I am telling people it's a closer gauge if you're looking at your numbers. If you're increased over 2019, then you are in a good place to me. But tell me your thoughts on it.
So, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that, so I'm going to use a sports metaphor here. So there's, so I'm going to use the basketball because the basketball tournament just got done. But, to use a basketball metaphor, so you have game seasons, and as a coach, you have a career. And as an entrepreneur, you have game seasons and careers. And there's a tendency as entrepreneurs. And by the way, just as a quick aside, I hate it when people, oh, I'm a little old retailer, I'm a little shopkeeper. No, you're a professional, you're an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I want you, I mean, all of
People
your
always
listeners.
play small like that. I don't understand why. It's like,
Well, it's because of fear, right? Because they're afraid they're going to not make it. And then the bigger they think, the bigger the letdown is going to be. And so it ties into what we're talking about here. So there's a tendency to look at what isn't happening, not what is happening. There's a tendency to focus on the bad things, not the good things. And it's natural. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to grow every quarter, you want to grow every year. But to your point, Michelle, and you're so spot on, is I wouldn't even, at some level, you know, as long as you're making progress as a business and your business in it isn't under an existential threat, you're good. If you're growing, you're good. So for the people who are becoming upset, I always ask, so how do you feel about your business? Don't get me wrong. Feeling about your business, the numbers still got to work. Don't get me
yeah.
wrong there. But so one of the things that we do before every Platinum Mastermind group meeting, or if somebody comes in and they hire me for a day long or 2 day long strategy session, the very, very first thing that we do is what we call the positive focus exercise. And the positive focus exercise, for instance, in the Platinum Mastermind group, we meet 3 times a year. What have you done since our last meeting? Because everybody comes in and they think about all the things they haven't done, right? Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I got this problem. I mean, it's just natural. Yeah, I'm guilty of it. You're probably guilty of it. This stuff
100%.
needs to get done. It's not getting done. But when you sit down and write down all of the things you've actually done since our last meeting, you can feel the energy in the room shift. Boom. It's like, wow, this
Yeah.
is crazy. All this good stuff has happened. And so when you stay focused on what you have done, it's motivating. When you focus on everything that hasn't been done, it's demotivating. So can I recommend a book?
Yeah.
So the book, and we've given this to everybody in our Platinum Mastermind group. We had everybody on our team read it. If you're watching this and you're a retailer or you're an
We'll put
entrepreneur,
a link in the notes too.
okay, it's called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. I mean, it's
The Gap and the Gain.
The Gap and the Gain.
Okay.
So
We'll
here's
leave a link for it.
Great. That's great. And I mean, I can't recommend it strongly enough. So when you think about the ideal, because as entrepreneurs, we always think in terms of the ideal, don't we? You want your podcast to have 10 million downloads an episode, right? You want to be Tim Ferriss, right? I mean, that's just the way
I don't know
that
about that, but yeah.
yeah. But the idea, that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. Thinking big is what we do. We accomplish one thing, and then what's the next mountain to climb? But so the ideal is what we always compare ourselves against. But the ideal is a mental construct. So I'm here in Grand Haven, Michigan. If I look out the window, I can see the Grand River. The Grand River flows through Grand Haven and empties out into Lake Michigan, right? And so it goes west. So if I were to get in a boat and go out to Lake Michigan and just head west, I would see the horizon, but I would never get to the horizon. I get to Milwaukee, but not to the horizon, because the horizon is a mental construct. You're never going to get to it. I remember Susan and I said, when we hit $100,000 in sales, we're going to start working only 4 days a week. Well, we hit $100,000 in sales. Wow, let's get to 500,000, right?
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the
The bar.
entrepreneurial mind. That that's a good way of looking at it. But comparing yourself against the ideal is always demotivating. That's why people get stuck in ruts. Comparing themselves to last year is comparing themselves against the ideal. But then that's one. But then there's also what you've actually accomplished. And the gap is actually the space between what you've accomplished and the gain. And so when you focus on what you have done, not what you're trying to do, and build goals that are, built on what you've already accomplished, then all of a sudden now we start making progress towards that ideal, or recognizing that there's no ideal, but you're making progress rather than beating yourself up for being stuck in a place where you don't want to be.
I feel like that took a lot of pressure off a lot of people, because I feel like that's what, and into what you were saying as far as like worrying about other people, like Fred's best piece of best piece of advice he ever gave me, because within, I don't know if you know I'm sure you know the name Fred Siegel, but within the complexes, it was one umbrella and each store was separately owned and operated. I had 3 spaces, and there was stores, because it was zip code protected, a lot of the lines that we wanted, because Fred Siegel had all the best lines that were available. Right. So, everybody hits the show floor and it's like you're panic shopping, just get the brand before anybody else does. And I had said to Fred someday, I'm like, I couldn't get this line because this store had it and I couldn't get, and he was like, stop worrying about everybody else. Literally, like, stop. You worry about you. You keep pushing your ball forward. You keep doing your displays and doing what you do so well and why people come to your stores, and stop looking in the rear view window. And that was like, it's still truly what I tell my retailers, and it's still truly what I go by myself, because there's a lot of people, what I do, a lot of people do. But I will say, and even with this podcast, like, I haven't, like when you said to Tim Ferriss reference, like, I honestly just started this as like a fun thing to do. And it's like, I never anticipated where we are now. And
right.
I guess because now I'm not worrying about anybody else, and I'm just pushing my ball forward. And I think a lot of retailers, like, don't worry about, we had Ashley Alderson from the Boutique Hub on a couple weeks ago, and her whole thing is like the competition, like community over competition, and everyone worrying about like, oh, this person's doing that and this person's doing that. It's like, it's a good thing that we're all doing this, because that brings everybody to your street or your neighborhood or your strip mall or wherever you are. It's like, stop worrying about everybody else and just do what you do, and just keep worrying about, like, keep pushing your ball forward and making your, like, one-upping what you did the last time, and just keep working on yours.
Yes. So may I make respond to 2 different points here?
Can of course.
Okay. So the first one is, I love that idea that just do what you do and just be responsible for yourself, I think is what the point that I want to make. Because I have this conversation a lot where people will say to me, well, I'm not open on Sunday because nobody in my downtown is open on Sunday. Or I don't stay open late because nobody else stays open late. And my answer to that is always, you are responsible for your traffic. So if you are a good marketer, you will create your traffic. You don't, as an independent retailer, don't ever be dependent on people walking up and down your street or driving by your street. You need to understand how to proactively market your business and drive people in. So Fred Siegel, I mean, I love that whole idea of you can do what you can do. And this idea of take responsibility for what's happening in your business. Because you can't sell through a closed door. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. And you were talking about, Ashley's point was super well taken. But at the end of the day, you need to do what you can do, take responsibility for what there is,
Own it.
and do it. So the other thing that I wanted to share when we were talking about people, this whole idea of beating last year and always comparing yourself against something. So one of the most valuable things that Susan and I ever did, and we learned it from Ari Weinswag, who is the co-founder of Zingerman's. Do you know Zingerman's in Ann Arbor? Oh,
No,
you should know.
I don't
Everybody
know
should
a lot
know.
of Midwest, East Coast stores because I'm
Okay,
on the
so
West Coast.
Zingerman's is now a family of businesses, but they started out as a deli in Ann Arbor, and Inc. magazine voted them one of the coolest places in America to work. Ari is one of the most astute business thinkers I have ever come across. I would
Zimmerman's.
recommend that everybody subscribes to his newsletter. He's just thoughtful. He's deep. He's written about 5 or 6 books. He's been the keynote speaker at our summit several times. People love him. His food is amazing, impeccable. He tells a story, all of these things. But he also has one of his companies is or their companies. It's the Zingerman family of companies. It's called Zing Train, and they do training on their customer service philosophies and all of those things. But Ari teaches visioning. And visioning is not a Zingerman's concept. It was actually created, the term was preferred futuring. It was something they created to create the Apollo moon landing module. But this idea of, and then we went and spent 2 days with Ari and, at a workshop. But the idea is look out 5 or 7 years and think about exactly what you want from your business. What do you want from your life? What is it that you're in this business for? Not profit, not number of stores, although that can be part of it, but really discover what's in your heart, right? And then you create an emotionally compelling document, and you can learn about it if you Google Zingerman's vision statement. It will take you to an article in Inc. magazine. But and whenever anybody, and again, we talked about positive focus, whenever anybody joins the Platinum Mastermind group, the first thing they do is they create a vision statement, because then everybody in the group knows where they're trying to get and can help them get there. So when people get hung up or discouraged because this year didn't beat 22 or 21, the way that I always reply to our clients who have a vision statement, and I know it, is, are you getting closer to your vision?
Good point.
Because if you're getting closer to your vision, 1 month doesn't matter. Remember, it's game, season, career.
Yep.
One game you can lose, the University of Connecticut, I don't know how many games they've lost many games this year, but they won the national championship
Against our San Diego.
Yeah, I always.
My husband went to that college, so I'm not a sports girl, but
yeah, and their coach, I don't even know his name anymore, but he coached for Michigan, yada yada yada. But yes, but you see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So we all have to recognize that we're playing a long game. And when we understand that we're playing a long game, we can be patient with ourselves when things don't move as quickly as we want them to. There's a great quote, I don't know who to attribute it to, but there's this great quote that, entrepreneurs always overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And it's so true, just, and here's another trap I see happen all the time. Is they have a big project. I'm going to build a training program. I'm going to build a marketing plan. And then they start on it. And when it doesn't go as planned, they quit. And then they become anxious and frustrated and disappointed in themselves because they didn't set out what they set out to do.
Oh my God, you just explained me a project I'm working on. Wow. Well, okay.
All right, Michelle, may I give you my advice? 3 words.
Please.
So now I just want to be perfectly clear here, Michelle. The cobbler's children have no shoes. I've been
Oh,
writing a book since the year before the pandemic, right? I mean, and so the pandemic gives me a little bit of an excuse, but it's still taking way longer than it should. And actually, it's turned out all right because the world has changed since I started. But there's for your listeners and for you, but if you want to get anything done, anything significant, and there's three words: begin and begin again. So I have a mindfulness practice. One of the things that I've learned is that if I meditate, I am a better person. I'm less stressed and yada, 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 all the benefits. And one of the things and I started meditating with the 10% happier app, because
yeah.
they always had a little mindfulness lesson
Yep.
before the guided meditation. And what I learned from that is this idea of the magic moment. Because everybody, and there's a parallel here, stick with me. But everybody, when they start to meditate, you want to get to nirvana right away, right? First time you sit down, I don't know, I want to see lights, colors, I want the heavens to open up, I want angels to start barking at me what to do and all these things. And of course, it never happens, right? It's a monkey mind, right? We're entrepreneurs. Uh, and so what happens is we become frustrated, we become discouraged, and we stop meditating. But in meditation, they call it the magic moment. It's when you realize that you're not paying attention to your breath and you come back to the breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they call it a practice,
Yep.
right? You get better at it. And so for everybody who has a big project, me and my book, when you get away from it, don't beat yourself up. Begin again. Adjust, figure out what to do. I'll share what I had to do to get my book back on track, and it's back on track because I'm a busy entrepreneur like you, like everybody. And I have a really nice morning routine that I hated to mess with because it took me a long time to get there, right? I get up, I do a little bit of motivational reading, I
Mm-hmm.
journal,
Mm-hmm.
and in my journal, I always gratitude, and then I
Yeah.
meditate, and then I go to the gym, and I finally got this routine all dialed in, and I'm feeling good about myself.
And you have
It's
to
good
give it
morning
up.
routine. Hey, I got this. But my book wasn't getting written. So,
Mm,
and by the time, whenever I start, if I check my email, the day's gone, right? I'm doing meetings and talking to people and doing what I do, you doing what you do, your listeners doing what they do. So I knew I needed to begin again. And what I had to do was change my routine I had to make a choice
mm-hmm.
to make that the priority. And I had to change my routine, which was quite precious to me.
Yeah.
And so now what I do is I get up and I write for an hour. I work on the book first thing. I drink my water, I, push the button on the coffee, but basically it's, I'm just working on my book. And then I go into what I did before. But the point, to you being kind of stuck, and to me working on it, to everybody out there, because every retailer I know understands the value of having a training program, understands the importance of having a marketing plan, understands how critical it is to have open to buy planning. But you get caught up in all the work, and so the important stuff doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea of don't beat yourself up, it's all right, begin again. It's just like meditation. Just keep coming back to it. Don't beat yourself up. Keep coming back to it,
I love
because
that.
beating yourself up it's a negative spiral.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, it's like I'll share with you. Most of the listeners have already heard this. Like I was creating, I still, because it doesn't exist of a how to merchandise in a real life situation with real inventory, and actually how the merchandising from the very beginning, from your architecture into your contextualizers, the product placement, signage, all of that. So
Right.
I started doing that, and just the colossal, well, I'm one of those people that goes, I'm going to do that. And just like this podcast, I'm going to start a podcast. No idea what the hell I'm doing. And it's like, I put a lot of very strong people behind me and helped created it. And here we are. But jumping into that one was a little more than my usual. I can do that. And then the cost of it was really, it was like, I was like, holy moly, like I've burned through so much money. So well, it's not done. It is changing. We're going to put it up on YouTube. Instead of it being a paid subscription, it's going to be free. It's going to be on YouTube, and then build the audience that way. But the guilt I had put myself through, and I finally, as much like you, I have a very precious daily meditation and gratitude lists, and I read 10 pages of the business book. Like it's very precious to me. And it's like, it will fall out when I'm in show season setting, because I do
Yeah.
showroom setups as well. And it's like my day starts at 6 a.m. on job floor. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to add anything else, I would be like up at 3 a.m, which is, challenging. But
But
hearing that of like, don't beat yourself up and begin again, because it's not completely put away, but man, the guilt, the pressure and the guilt I put myself through of like,
and there's no reason for it.
oh my
I
God.
mean, so yes, I'm glad that that was helpful to you. And so here's something else that I have to tell myself all the time, because I'm like every other entrepreneur. Our business should be 10 times bigger than it is. Well, how come it's not? And all of these things. But one of the things that I believe to my no, I mean I believe it's a truth, is that your actions are a reflection of your true priorities, right? And so right now I am reading in my morning quick reads As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Mm.
And one of my mentors, his name is Randy Gage. And, I mean, the book's as big as this iPhone.
Wow.
And he said they should charge $10,000 for that book because it's that valuable. The truths are that profound. But basically, what you think manifests itself
100%.
100%. And so, and it's been good for me to come back to that book, even though I've read it probably 15 times, because, if I say my priority is health, but I don't work out and I have a candy bar and a glass of wine as soon as I go home every night,
I like your
well,
style.
yeah, yeah, but good candy and good wine. But isn't it true though? I mean, what you truly believe or your priorities get reflected in your
Or what you're
actions.
going to make of it.
And that's why it was like, Bob, that book's not getting written, man. Whose fault is it? It's not my team's fault. It's not my client's fault. It's my fault. And so rather than beat myself up, it's like, okay, it's that whole idea of every problem points to the need to grow someplace in your life. So I had a problem. My book wasn't getting done. Your listeners, you have a problem. You don't have a training program. You have a problem. Your team isn't behaving the way or responding to your direction the way that you want. You have a problem. You have a problem. Don't get mad. Just don't. Another quote from the Zingerman's families: don't get furious, get curious.
Ah, I like that.
The problem, if you have a problem, what's causing the problem and what can you do?
I love that. Okay, so now I've taken so much of your time, and
No. I'm
I'm
here for
loving this
you.
conversation.
Good. Well, I'm here for you, Michelle.
Talk to us a little bit about how your program works and what it looks like. Like, I'm all into, I'm going to dip my toe in.
Sure. So dip the toe. Let's start with dip the toe. We have a mailing list, of course, and it's called the Retail Buzz. And if you go to our website, you can sign up. Every Wednesday, we send out a tip of the week. It's a text tip. I think we're at tip number 1,300. We've been sending out weekly tips for a long time. And then on Sunday, you get an episode of my video blog, which is called Real Retail TV. They're usually about 10 minutes. So those are real bite-sized chunks. We do, and if you subscribe to the Retail Buzz, we do regular Facebook Lives. We do regular webinars. So, our philosophy as a business is income follows impact. So, yes, we love to sell stuff. Yes, we love the impact that our products and programs have. But to your point, some people just want to learn about, understand if what we teach works and all of those
Yeah.
things. So, I mean, there's so many things that you can participate in for absolutely no cost. We have a Facebook group. It's called Whiz Bang Retailers. If we should break 6,000 people this week. So,
I
uh,
belong to that one. I enjoy seeing some of the posts that people.
but you know, it really is. It's a positive group. It's
Great
very
community.
active. Yeah, it's a community. It truly is a community. Community is one of our core values, right? It's one of our strategies. So that's free. But then there are our two flagship products are the Retail Mastery System. And the Retail Mastery System, if you're an independent retailer, it's the most comprehensive training program anywhere. Like, you know, there's 11 modules, it's 25 hours of retail training, but, you know, it's all the things you need to know to run a successful retail store. One of our clients who was really, really struggling until he invested said, it's like a Harvard MBA, right? I mean, it's all of those nuts and bolt skills you need. No product knowledge. So if you have a bike store, there's not one thing about what bikes you should carry.
Ops.
What's that?
Operations.
Ops. Oh, yes. There's a module on store operations. There's a module, you know, if you go to our website, Whiz Bang Training, there's an H in Whiz Bang. You can see the, you know, you can learn all about it. But that's our flagship product. And if you're an owner or a manager, I don't care how experienced you are, there will be strategies and tactics that will make you think differently or give you ideas on how to build your business, how to run a better team, all those things. I mean, we're incredibly proud of the impact it's had in the world. We also have a platform called the Retail Sales Academy Plus. And that is where I train on the floor employees how to sell. When I was at the Mackinac Kite Company, I created a process called the 6 steps to the perfect purchase. I mean, it's intensely customer focused. It's retail specific. So rather than you trying to train your people how to sell, you know, I can train your people how to sell. And there's follow-ups and quizzes and reportings and all of the good stuff that go into a robust training program. But the really fun thing is, so the Retail Sales Academy Plus is retail sales training, but then there's also a store owner's ability to create their own training program and put it on this platform with the same reporting capabilities and all of those things. And, you know, for the people who, again, make that decision to give their customers a great experience, it really is. I mean, we're so proud of the results it's getting. So the Retail Mastery System is for owners and managers. The Retail Sales Academy is to train your frontline employees. The Retail Success Summit is our flagship conference. Happens every year, usually 450 people, 450, 500 people come, 2 days in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Really, it's an amazing event. People get all excited and it's great. And then for the best retailers, we have a group called the Platinum Mastermind Group, and that's our mastermind. You have to apply, and not everybody's accepted, but it's not for everybody. Only already successful retailers are accepted. You have to be able to bring something. It's not inexpensive. It's $15,000 a year, plus traveling 3 times a year. But if you're already successful and you're looking for that next thing, that community, you know, there's 25 of us, and I mean, it's mind blowing just
Very
getting
cool.
25 retailers in the room. And so that's the essence of it. We've got other programs and stuff like that, but those are sort of our main products and programs. So if you're a retailer, no matter where you are in your journey, we've got something that can help you build a better business and build a better life.
Tell everybody where they can find you. We will have the links in the show notes, but for those watching,
sure. If you go to Whiz Bang Training, WHIZ bangtraining.com, you know, in the primary navigation, you can find all of our products. If you want to see the Real Retail TV, you go to the primary navigation where it says blog. But I would encourage all of your listeners, you know, just go like I said, there's plenty of, great information that is absolutely free of charge. And if you like, to what we talked about earlier, some people are going to listen. Some people are listening to me right now and go, I don't like that guy at all. And
No, it's funny. I've realized that people really, what we're talking about, and that's why I love this, is that they're everything that everybody feels or thinks at one point as a business
right.
owner. And it's
Yeah.
like, I like the straightforward. I mean, I did an interview, and it's, the title of it was Michelle Sherrier Shoots from the Hip. Because
Right.
I'm like the person that just lays it out, like good,
Right.
bad, or indifferent. Like this is what it is. And I feel like sometimes you need that. You don't need the sugarcoating, and that you need somebody to say, come on, like you need to
100%.
take responsibility for yourself and own your own feelings and thoughts, and like you kind of
100%.
do that.
And and I learned this from my mentor Randy Gage. And Randy goes, if you don't have any haters, you're not doing enough. You're not putting
Thank
yourself
you.
out enough. Am I right though?
Yeah, believe me. And like I said, I had somebody that was like, Michelle, some of the staff says this about you, but I'm like, I always learn a lot from Michelle, and I listen to her, and what she's telling us isn't because of any other reason other than she wants our success. I'm like, thank you. And just so you know, I don't give a F about like what everybody else thinks about me. My what I owe and who I work for is who my loyalty is for. And
That's
my
right.
whole objective is to make my retailers successful, profitable, and look good at the same time. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, if
Yeah.
the team doesn't like me, sorry.
That's exactly. So we had a good laugh in the Platinum Mastermind group. One of the members has a wonderful kitchenware store in North Dakota. And she was laughing. She said, I hired somebody. It goes back to this whole idea of you need the right people. And if they're not the right people, you need to get rid of them as quickly as possible, right? Most of the people that our best clients are now doing trials, right? I mean, you get a day, right? Or 2 days. But she shared with me, she's laughing. She said, I hired somebody and they loved to cook and they loved cookware. And they went through the retail sales academy and said, "Oh, I didn't like that guy at all." They didn't like selling. They wanted to live in the worlds of pots and pans and things
Yeah.
like that. And the fact that, I'm like, look, this is how you sell, right? The perfect purchase, it's always about the customer, but your obligation is to give your customer everything they need so they have a successful experience. And she said, I was so happy about that. Made me realize right away that he wasn't a good fit. So
Bye.
bye. There you go. So
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoy this. Like I said, like I knew a little bit about you, but getting to know you like this, and your conversation and your straightforwardness, like I'm a fan, I gotta say.
well, good. I'm a fan of you too, Michelle. So thank you for having me. I mean, I truly am honored, and I hope that that your listeners found something of value from our conversation.
I'm sure they will.